Hello, everybody. Welcome to the I Told You podcast season 2 premiere. I am J. Marcelo Vaquero Alvarez, and I'm the person who's going to tell you unapologetically everything that the media seems to be too derelict to tell you. This is the topic for today: understanding the witting and unwitting insider threats. If you're familiar with this podcast, this is not a podcast for snowflakes. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right side of the spectrum. This might hurt your feelings because I'm going to tell you things not because you want to hear them, but because you have to hear them. And let's talk about what we're going to be covering today. When it comes to insider threats, there are two very big, broad categories. You have what is called the witting insider threats and the unwitting insider threats. And the witting insider threat essentially is the type of insider threat that actually is well aware that they are sabotaging their team. They know that they are betraying their own people because of whatever reason. It might be because they are coerced to do that, or it's because they really just don't like these guys, or because they want to work for the adversary as a double agent, whatever, is the case. They know that they are betraying their people. That's what a witting insider threat means, okay? They know that they're doing it. That is very dangerous, of course. The second type is the unwitting insider threat. Now, the unwitting insider threat is essentially does the same thing. It sabotages their own people and it betrays them. The difference is that they're too stupid to realize that they're actually doing so. And this is, of course, a lot more dangerous. And the problem is that we have a huge number of both witting and unwitting insider threats in the United States of America right now at all levels of government. And that also includes the media and the general population. And guess what? You don't know sometimes who might be an insider threat. It might actually be the person looking in the mirror. This is going to be one of those episodes about introspection. It's going to make you see the world in a different perspective that perhaps you didn't actually understand it. And there's a reason for that. Insider threats, particularly the unwitting ones, they happen to be very exploitable. They don't really understand what's going on, and they have a tendency to also be very cocky. They think that they have everything figured out, but they don't. Somebody else is actually calling the shots. And that is why we actually get to see this problem, not just in the USA. This is also happening to a lot of friendly nations who have their own political discourse. And for example, you might actually have this uncle that they don't like a particular politician in the USA, but they like a politician back in their own country. And then whenever this other politician is out of power, then they go to the politician that's in the USA, but the politician in the USA is actually kind of like another authoritarian, but it's from the opposite side of their political spectrum. Does that make sense? In other words, whenever you're falling into authoritarianism, it doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right side of the spectrum. The deeper you go down, it becomes a mirror image of the same monster. What makes them very similar is that if you speak out of turn, then they're going to start harassing and potentially killing you and everything you ever loved. And normally that's how it happens, okay? They don't start necessarily by killing everybody that is on their own team, but they're going to be intimidating everybody who's not playing ball until everybody's so paranoid about what is going on in their own lives that they're always perpetually looking behind their back to see the person that they love is not going to betray them. So the most dangerous insider threat is the one that is convinced that they are the good guys. Okay, in every type of dichotomy, when you have these insider threats, there's always going to be somebody that is going to be the good guys and the ones that are fighting against the bad guys. The insider threat is going to want to convince those good guys, quote unquote good guys, that they are vindicated to do whatever it is that they need to do in order for them to justify the ends. Okay, so the means justify the ends. If they have to kill, if they have to insult, if they have to be unsavory, if they have to sleep with somebody else's wife, then that's what they're going to do. I'm not even kidding. That actually does happen. It is kind of like a test to see how much dynamic range you have in your loyalty. Okay, so if you're loyal to this point, but if I'm pushing you farther from your let's say your comfort zone, how much farther are you willing to go? How obedient you're going to be? And yes, that has included in some instances that there were some authoritarians that they had their followers and their acolytes and even like their inner circle's wives to be sleeping with this authoritarian as a power move. For example, Mobutu, he was one of those. So yeah, it has happened throughout history. And the way that they're going to be coercing these good guys into actually seeing how loyal they are is going to vary depending on the person. Okay. So you might not really understand what technique is being used against you because each person is unique about what they feel that is correct or acceptable up to a certain point. All right. So the exploitation occurs whenever you have your biases and your virtues and they're being used against you. Everybody has virtues, everybody has biases. And the last person to realize that these biases have been exploited is going to be the person that is being exploited. And a lot of times, that is going to be a bias exploitation through adulation. They're going to make you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, that you have figured everything else. Everybody else out there, yeah, they're the idiots. I'm the smart one. You are an idiot. You are an idiot. You are an idiot. But I cannot be seeing myself as the person that doesn't have that cognitive ability to understand right from wrong. And they convince them by giving them very strategically placed cherry picked points. So it's going to seem like they are figuring out themselves. Oh, wow, look at that. I'm figuring out this new information. I didn't understand that before, but look at this information. It is placed in front of me just for me to start assimilating. And as they assimilate that, there's going to be another little nugget of information that's going to be right in front of that and just continues that cycle. It makes these people believe that, oh, I'm on to something. Okay, I am onto something. I actually understand this, even though they don't actually understand it. It's part of the process, and I know it's disgusting. As I say, a propagandist is going to be exploiting your virtues and your biases. So if you have your faith, or if you have your patriotism, or you have your love for the planet, or your love for women, or your love for children, or your love for whatever is it, that could be exploitable if you don't understand that that can actually be weaponized, and it has been weaponized before. And that's what we're talking about, that the unwitting insider threat can be so dangerous, because if you're a witting insider threat, yeah, you're an asshole. Okay, you know that you are doing something to try to protect yourself or protect whatever is that it's on your own, on your own circle, without actually thinking that the overall team can actually help you defeat this person or this adversary that is holding you hostage. Does that make sense? We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want you to start thinking about that. And that's why I'm actually talking a little bit more about the unwitting insider threats. All right. So the way to get there, to get people to start playing ball is by exploiting your anger. Anger is a very, 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 and I'm using a lot of berries because a very powerful catalyst. It makes you think that you are vindicated to do something. So think about a moment whenever you were super angry and somebody that was seemingly in your side say, "Oh yeah, yeah, you're right to be angry. Yeah, fuck those other guys," even though you were wrong. At that moment, it felt like you were vindicated. Yeah, fuck those other guys. Yeah, even though it was your fault. So that's kind of how it started happening. Okay, it might not be as on the nose in the beginning, and it starts very subtly. It takes a little while, depending on the people that they are targeting. So some of the people that target, yeah, they are going to have proclivity to go by really fast inside the rabbit hole. Other people are going to be a little bit harder to get to that point. But all the insider threats, they have one thing in common: they are confused about something. That is a common denominator. They are confused about something. They think that they understand it, and that's why I say to people that they keep saying, "Oh, I think about this. What do you think about this?" When they're actually talking about facts, and I get really mad about that, is because thinking is not measurable. If you think, you're putting facts on the same level as opinions, but they are not the same thing. And when it gets normalized, then these facts are not going to resonate in the way that they should. That's why I'm very angry when people say think instead of I know, when they have a platform, because they have a responsibility for the people who are listening to them, because those words are going to resonate with them, whether if they're opinions or if they're facts. But if they're confusing facts with opinions, then they're not really going to be able to understand what is the difference between those. And the problem is that if you have a vulnerability, the adversary, they already know what that is. Even if you haven't figured them out yet yourself, they also have figured out not just what your vulnerabilities are, but if you speak out of turn, how many ways they can actually eliminate you. It's kind of like mafia rules. Okay, you are working for me, I'm doing these favors for you, and you speak out of turn, then they kind of like kill you and everything you ever love. It's kind of like that. Okay, it works in different ways. It might be the disenfranchising you from the group, shunning you out of this community that you have, or it could be perhaps as a smearing campaign, or denying your funds from be moving. If you are kind of like, let's say, in a society, okay, and everybody that is playing ball, they kind of like share the same economy, but then if you get shunned, now you lose all your business, that kind of stuff. So there's many ways that people can actually be coerced, or how they are going to punish them if they stop playing ball. So the best way is not to actually get into the place that you have to actually owe them anything. Okay, so don't compromise your principles, because the moment that you compromise your principles, they own you. The moment you compromise your principles, they own you. Okay, that's why I say it again. So that's how they will pander to loyalty. Sometimes, as I say, through coercion, because it's an offers you cannot refuse. So you're going to have to do whatever you do. Sometimes it's going to be through flattery. Sometimes it's going to be through money. Whatever is easy to them, to the person who is exploiting you, whatever is easier to them, they're going to do that. Sure, for some of them, it's going to be very easy, just like throw some money to somebody, and then they're going to see, how the little monkey is going to be dancing. For some of the other people, it's going to be a lot different, because they might not actually need the money, but they want the power, they want the placement and access. So they might actually have other ways to try to entice them and get them into that circle of trust and that circle of obedience. So understand, that there's different dynamics. And that's why during this podcast, I'm going to be covering little by little this thing, because it's a very, very broad subject. They're going to make you believe that you can just feed that in a bumper sticker, but that's not how it works. When you think that you can actually feed complex topics in a bumper sticker, then you lost, because it doesn't fit in a bumper sticker. Okay, there's complexity. There's a lot of different layers that you have to really understand. It's not just a black and white issue. It's a gradient that is very dynamic. So the problem is that your loyalty means nothing to them. The more loyal that you are, the more they laugh at you. That is the bottom line. The more loyal that you are to authoritarian, they just laugh at your ass. They say, okay, you're a fucking gullible idiot. And the more gullible that you are, the lower the bar is going to be for them to try to convince you to do something. Okay, so the more demeaning the task that they will ask you to do, the more demeaning whatever you are going to be leaving. Okay, for two reasons. Okay, so for one reason is because they get lazy. Okay, so if they realize that at this high bar you just didn't understand it, you just believe stuff that is really pretty in the lower bar, why are they going to be giving you something that it's essentially a waste of time for them? But the other thing is also as a power move. So, like, for example, if there's some type of coercion, and you see somebody else who got out of line that had an accident, quote unquote accident, that resulted in death or something terrible because they were speaking out of line coincidentally, so it was a coincidence, then essentially they're going to be working it in a way, well, you wouldn't want a coincidence to happen to you also, right? I mean, you're going to be behaving, you're going to be paying attention, right? Because these accidents can happen. And that is happening around many other countries. That could actually very well be happening in the media. That could very well be happening to politicians, because a lot of politicians, they have skeletons in the closet, and it just takes somebody to show them some evidence. Say like, hey, you don't want to play ball? Here, I have all those documents. I'm going to make them leak right now, unless you say what I tell you that you want to say. So we have to pay attention, because that is nothing new. That's been going on from the beginning of time. That's why I'm saying you don't compromise your principles, because the moment that you compromise your principles, they own you. And if you made a mistake and they want to coerce you with that, if you've done something wrong and you double down and you create a cover up for that, then you just made it worse for yourself. But if you actually come clean, whatever the circumstances are going to be, say like, okay, I own to that mistake, and, live with the shame or the disgrace, at least they can help you. But if you don't come clean, then you give that power to these other people. Now, the problem is that in the places of government and big media personalities is that when they give that power to whoever is actually controlling them, then those very systems to help everybody else not falling into that trap, they get eroded from the inside out. They destroy those mechanisms to defend us. So that is why it's very important, okay? And that's why authoritarians, first, they're just going to dispose you, okay? The second that you become inconvenient to them, they're just going to try to get rid of you, disown you, or just throw you under the bus, blah, blah, blah. For example, during the presidential campaign, whenever people start learning about Project 2025, what did Trump do? Oh no, I don't know anything about Project 2025. I haven't read it, and they have some crazy stuff. Yeah, there's nothing that I have to do with that. And now what is he doing? He's putting people in the cabinet that they wrote Project 2025. Yeah, surprise? Yeah, they were laughing at your fucking, not just your face, they were laughing at your ass, and they were laughing at your gullibility, because what people were doing. Oh, well, Trump said that he was not going to use Project 2025. And what is he doing? He's picking cabinet members that they are in favor of Project 2025. In fact, people who wrote it. Yeah. You were an insider threat. Understand that? Okay, let's keep talking, because it gets better, especially if you fuck up. I told you it's going to hurt your feelings. Authoritarians want yes men and yes women. They just want rubber stamp antics. They just want somebody that is loyal. No, they don't want somebody that is actually thinking. A real government that is not authoritarian is going to be getting people that are going to speak truth to power. They're going to say, hey, boss, you have a blind spot here. Let's not do that. Here, let me show you, because of this and this and this and this and this could result in this and this and this and that. So I recommend this and this and this and this safeguards. Okay. That is how it's supposed to work. That is why you have people that have a different combination of talents. Okay. Because nobody's perfect. It doesn't matter how smart you are. You're not perfect. None of us are. Okay. It requires for us to have a team of experts that they actually understand whatever they're good at, so they can be in those positions. That's, for example, whenever you get cabinet positions for a government, you're going to have people who have career experience, hopefully both in the private and the public sector, about that particular type of job that they're doing, so they can make changes and start implementing whatever improvements that they need to be added for the good of the country. Okay, so if you have a government that is actually just putting loyalists, somebody's just going to say, yes, boss. Yes, if you say to jump 3 feet and scratch my head, that's exactly what I'm going to do very obediently. You're not working for the USA. You're working for that particular authoritarian wannabe. That is what's happening. That person is telling you, your co-equal branch of government means shit to me, means shit to the Constitution. You're just going to do what I want. Now, you have to understand that if you do that, you're actually hurting the USA. You're not just hurting your own career, because, at some point now, you're not going to even be able to speak truth to power later on. And maybe you try to do that, but since now everybody else in the same group, they seem to be too afraid to speak truth to power, now the whole mechanism just essentially means shit. And who wins with that? The adversarial regimes, because you know what they do? They show that as propaganda in their different regimes. Say, you see, the US government, it doesn't work. They're corrupt. You see, they just have one person, say, like, jump 3 feet high, scratch your head, and they're going to do exactly that. So what are all these co-equal branches of government? You don't need them. You see, you just have one person called shots, and that's it. That is what they want. That's what they have. That's what they want you to do. You haven't realized that. Who do you work for? If you're in office of importance in the country, either in Congress or in the Supreme Court, or even in the media, that has the duty to explain what's going on factually. Who do you work for when you just repeat talking points from somebody who might or might not be correct, or who might or might not be compromised themselves? Did you stop to think that they might actually be an insider threat, and you're becoming an unwitting insider threat as well? Or worse, are you a witting insider threat? Do you actually know what you're doing? Because that is treason. Newsflash. Even if you were elected and you drape yourself in an American flag, that's still treason. Understand that, okay? Who do you really work for? Don't answer that question to me. Answer that to yourself. Okay? Authoritarians do everything, to point, to that the good advice, that collides, to the preconceptions. Okay, so the authoritarians do that. Okay, they just want you to do something that even if it collides with your actual principles, yeah, fuck that. You're going to do what I want you to do. They just going to praise that loyalty over skill. But guess what? It's not sustainable because the whole thing is going to implode. Let me give you an actual example from an authoritarian that a lot of people know. So when Stalin was in power, Stalin, being the second Soviet Union leader after Lenin took over. Stalin, he was not necessarily a very bright person per se, but he was very shrewd and he was very cunning. So when he got the position was because he actually got a whole bunch of acolytes in particular positions because he was not in a really high ranking position per se, but he had a position where he was actually able to recruit and place people into particular offices. So what Stalin did, then he didn't actually have that real good understanding of how certain things work, but he wanted the loyalty from his people. And he was afraid that somebody was actually going to kick him out of power. So the problem is that it was also riddled with a whole bunch of incompetence because what he created was a purge. He got rid of all the military officers that they were pretty much savvy on what they were supposed to be doing as far as military doctrine. And he replaced them with a whole bunch of loyalists. Loyalists who had no idea about how to run the country. That's exactly what he did. So when he instituted these loyalists, they were obedient. Of course, they were corrupt and they were incompetent. They didn't know what the hell they were doing, obviously. And he kind of like work in a way for them because if you spoke out of turn, they were going to kill you anyway. So it's because you don't like how I'm doing business? Well, too bad. Because the way that it was in the Soviet Union, if another person was a little bit higher ranking with you being military civilian, if they talk shit about you, they didn't like you, well, that was the end of your life. That's how it was. So a lot of people, they would just, look the other way and say, well, at least not my turn. It's not my turn to die today. I'm just going to let it be. I'm just going to keep my head down and just let them do what they're doing. It's not working correctly. Well, it is what it is. But coming to World War II, because that is after already Stalin had killed a whole bunch of people, not just on prosecutions, but it was a genocide against his own people because of the famine and all these bad policies that he put that they were backfiring, that were not actually working, like the communal farms. So the way that Stalin was actually working whenever he became frenemies with the Allies during World War II, and it's worth remembering that Stalin and Hitler, they were allies before the war, and then Hitler betrayed Stalin, okay? So that's why Stalin crossed the pond, if that makes sense, to join the USA and the British forces in order to fight against the Axis powers that they were in that time, Germany and Italy and Japan. Okay, so that's how it happened. Okay, it's not because they like him or we liking them back. It was because of a marriage of convenience. And one of the things that was very interesting about Stalin is that he actually used to just send people as cannon fodder. So he didn't give a shit about his people. Like his tactic to essentially try to win a battle was just send a fuck ton of people. And if they die in the process, they didn't have anything to eat and they had to loot or do whatever they need to be doing. Well, fuck it, Just send waves and waves of people. And if they die in the process, well, fucking too bad. In the West, it was a lot different, because actually they wanted to preserve the human life from their people in uniform that they were actually defending, not just because the right thing to do, but tactically also makes sense. You just don't want to have all your personnel being killed in stupid ways. But it was very different, at that time. Of course, that there were a lot of mistakes and something, could have actually worked better, whenever they were doing military operations. And the problem is that casualties would have been inevitable, particularly in those days, the way that the warfare was being fought. And the way how Stalin and the West were trying to sort out the human suffering, that was very different in a way. Okay, so that would be, as again, I said, there were a lot of different changes that happened because many problems did exist in the ranks, and that's There's a different conversation that we can actually have. But it was not at the level that the Soviet Union was actually taking, because after the war, even it didn't even stop. It just got even worse. For a lot of people who remained behind the Iron Curtain. So when it came to insider threats for Stalin, was the fact that those positions of influence, they were just a rubber stamp for him. Okay, so if he wanted to do something, same thing, as like what Trump is saying to his people in Congress, yeah, jump 3 feet high and scratch your head. That's what Stalin was doing. Why are we doing the same thing? They knew at the time, the Soviet Union was a punitive dystopia. So it's not that they act on behalf of their own people. As I say, it was okay. It's just not my turn to die. It's not my turn to be punished today. So I'm just going to keep my nose clean. And if they tell me to jump 3 feet high and scratch my head, I'm just going to do that. No questions asked. Makes no sense to do that, but fuck it. It is not my turn today. And the problem is that is why we have fucking democracy or a constitutional republic. So that doesn't happen. That's why you have co-equal branches of government, so you can tell the executive power, hey, that doesn't make sense. How about we do something that is for America? And if you cannot do this job, let's put somebody who can, even if it is not in my own party. Because guess what? The U.S. Constitution and the USA as a country should be a lot more important than just a political party. How about that? Of course, that is really hard for some people to seem to be confused about what's going on. That's why I told you. Insider threats, they're confused. They don't understand what they're doing, okay? But in other words, what happened in the Soviet Union could very well be happening around the world, and in the USA included, is that they would be selling the lives of many people in the country just to spare themselves from, in that time, from Stalin's rage. Is it going to be now that they're just going to be sparing themselves from Trump's rage? And why I'm saying that is because any person who were on that side and they spoke about Trump in a way that it was anything less than flattering, what's he doing? He attacks them. He has no problem attacking people in his own country. Not to Putin, though. Surprise. Have you ever heard Trump say anything that it would be considered offensive against Putin? He has given nicknames to everybody else, never to Putin. What's Putin's nickname from Trump? Yeah, you don't think so? Yeah. Why is that? Because he's subordinate to Putin. That's why. Trump is subordinate to Putin. It's obvious. That's why he hasn't given him a nickname, ever. And he won't be doing it because he works for him, even if he doesn't realize it. Is Trump an insider threat? Is he a witting insider threat? Is he an unwitting insider threat? Think about that. Why hasn't Trump never, ever given a nickname to Putin? Why hasn't he? Huh? Okay, so newsflash again. Civics 101, the USA has 3 co-equal branches of government, and they are not supposed to be a rubber stamp. They are supposed to be able to speak truth to power. That's what a democracy is. That's what a constitutional republic is. It's to make sure that there's checks and balances. So nobody has unilateral power. Period. Why? Because one person is fallible. Every person is fallible. So we need a team effort to make sure that we can get to the best solution. And the media is supposed to be reporting on those facts. Yet what we get is mostly a gigantic advertisement for a particular candidate. Either if you're on the left or on the right, it doesn't matter, okay? We're not really talking about what is the matter of the issue. We're just talking about what puts more eyeballs on the screen. So hopefully we can sell them some fucking more advertisement and some products. Why are we doing that? Well, obviously, it's because I told you in the very first episode that I created for this podcast, because the mainstream media, they need those eyeballs so they can sell them, advertise them, so they can stay in power. And for the independent media, even though they try to do the best that they can, if they don't have no clicks, then they don't need. Okay, so that is the problem. I don't have a problem because I'm doing this thing not because I want to do it, because I really didn't want to do that. But I do it because I have to, because nobody else is doing it. And it's fucking driving me nuts, and that's why I'm doing it. Now, the problem is that if you are the insider threat as a person, if you're enamored with your candidate to the point that you see no flaws on them, okay, so you're so enamored with this person, okay, you're so in love with that person that you don't actually see any flaws. Yeah, they're perfect. They have to be perfect. They have to be perfect. Then you are an insider threat. You know why? Because nobody's perfect. And if you see perfection in somebody that is not perfect, then what is happening is that you're actually confused. You're trying to be putting your world into a certain lens that it just makes sense to you. So you can justify everything this person is doing, good or bad, especially the bad, because now you know that it's a reflection on you. Yeah, because if you see a fault on them, then it's a reflection on you. That's why the authoritarians, they always pose as though they're flawless. They're never going to be accepting that they're wrong. Yeah, you know why? It's because if you open the door for one mistake, then you realize the obvious, like that they are deeply flawed. Yeah, it is obvious. You're going to find out, okay, they are not perfect. That's why they are always going to double down on the mistakes. They can never be wrong. And somebody else's fault has to be the reality of a situation if they are called out on the shit. And the problem is because also all these guys, they happen to be extremely insecure. They're thin skinned. Tell something unflattering to Trump to see how he's going to be yelping. I don't know if he's ever going to be listening to my words. But yeah, he would be probably attacking me as a private citizen, even if it is after the fact and I am talking with my First Amendment right. Yeah, he would be going after me. And I say, why don't you go after Putin the same way? Because you work for him? Oh, that's a very nasty question. Or is it a nasty question? Or does he actually do that? Answer that question to yourself, not to me. That is what I would like to say. And the same thing to all his acolytes. Who do they work for? Who do they work for, really? For themselves or for the country? Especially if you're in a cabinet position, it's not a job, it's a duty. It's a service. There's a huge difference between a service and a job. Okay? So they're going to be pandering to adulation or to criticism whenever is a person that would be that is going to become an insider threat. And there's a problem, let's say, in this case, if Trump is actually wrong for all these and he's an insider threat, is he a witting or an unwitting insider threat? You have to think about these things, okay? So you can hold him accountable, because if he's an unwitting insider threat, yeah, maybe you can actually turn him around and realize what he's actually doing. And I say, yeah, talk to Putin, give him a nickname, okay? Yeah, you have no problem giving a nickname to everybody else. I'm sure you have like something derogatory to say to me. Give that to Putin. Do that. See how well it goes. He already put naked pictures of your wife in prime television. Let's see what else he does, okay? The reality is that we can disagree on the preferences, but we are not supposed to be disagreeing on the facts. Facts are what they are, regardless of whether you like them or not. That is the reality. So think about this, okay? A lot of times, the person that is creating the problem is the individual between both your ears. You're not wanting to see the reality because it hurts your feelings, it hurts your ego, it makes you feel stupid. That's fine. If you made a mistake, that doesn't make you stupid, that makes you human. What makes you stupid is to realize that you made a mistake and you keep in that mistake. That's what makes you stupid, okay? You understand? So now let me give you an example, okay? So you understand how this works. So let's say, that you can disagree about what type of apples you like or how to use the apples, an apple pie or apple cider or, like apple juice, whatever it is, But an apple is what it is, regardless of if you understand how you can use that apple, okay? You understand, what the apple is, okay? You understand the common denominator. Okay, let's give you another example. Okay, so let's say, for example, if a pencil. Okay, let's talk about a pencil. Everybody understand what a pencil is, or should understand what is a pencil, unless you live under a rock. Okay, there are many varieties of pencils. Okay, so there's some color pencils. There's some that you use for sketching, some that you use for whatever. You might prefer one type or the other. There's mechanical pencils. There's the ones that you have to like sharpen, like old school type or whatever. But a pencil is a pencil. You don't need to be worried about what a pencil is. Okay, you know what it is. Now, how you use the pencil, which preference you have, yeah, you can debate on that all you want. There's all kinds of other brands. Let's make another more on the nose example so you understand this. Okay, so a car. Okay, you know what a car is. Okay, a vehicle. Okay, despite that there's like tons of options. Okay, from pretty much from a Model T to whatever is the newest Rolls Royce they have. Okay, and everything in between. There's all kinds of different cars, depending which ones you like, which ones you don't like. Okay, your preference from brand, the trim, the model, etc. Okay, that's up to you. That won't change the underlying factor that a car is a car. Okay, so that is what we can actually be talking about. Okay, when we're actually disagreeing about something, okay? We understand what is the reality and what's not the reality. Okay, so the facts are the same way. Okay, we can disagree on the variables that are affecting this fact, but the common denominator is going to be what it is. So the problem is that the authoritarian propagandists, they are going to be using these insider threats to skew those facts. Again, they're going to be confusing these opinions with other facts. You understand? They want to confuse these opinions with the facts. And that's actually what I've been writing about for a long time. I have my books, Authoritarianism Propaganda, The Puppet Master Tools, and we have Woke and Proud, The Charlatans Inconvenience. They're both nonfiction, thought-provoking historical analysis of how propaganda has been taking a foothold through history and how to stop them from galvanizing. That's what I do. That's what I'm actually trying to teach you. It's not a black and white science, okay? It's going to be a complex thing, okay? It's not going to be something that you're going to be learning on one sitting if you're not familiar with that. But if you have some familiarity, then you're going to be able to connect those dots, and that's what I'm doing, okay? Another thing that I do is that's why I created my website, www.halflifecrisis.com. You go to the article section, and you can see that I've been speaking about this for years, okay? So I'm not being a Monday quarterback say like, hey, I'm just reacting to what happened. No, I've been telling you what was going to happen before. I do have a few thousand readers, but for every 1,000 readers I have, there's millions who get like some other wedge issues that they're missing from. So just help me, hopefully, get this information to them. And that's why I also created www.infoincontext.com, which is a free educational tool that I created for you guys so you can learn to defeat authoritarian propaganda. My words are traveling a lot farther than I'll ever be able to speak by myself. But the problem is that it doesn't matter what I'm saying. Okay, I already know this stuff. I need to make sure that you also understand what I'm actually telling you, right? So the next episode we're going to be continuing for this season is how Trump's picks are exceedingly convenient to the Putin's agenda. You're going to see a common theme for season 2 is that if you don't like the facts, well, remember, that your voice is only heard if you open your mouth, okay? So you have to be able to articulate what is actually going on in your life. So hopefully people are going to be understanding. That's why I'm actually doing this thing, okay? Me keeping this inside my head, just trying to pray or hoping that nothing bad is going to happen is not going to change anything. That's exactly what the bad guys want you to do. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I can articulate something. So hopefully it's going to be useful for you. And particularly for those people who are in power, that they understand that they are supposed to be working for the American people. Work in a government position, it's a service. It's not a job. Okay, a job is something, okay, that you do, you get paid, okay, whatever. A service is because you're doing it for the good of the country, particularly if you're an elected leader or if you're in a cabinet position, you work for the country, you don't work for a person. The person that is in charge is incidental. If the person is doing something stupid, you have to be able to say, hey, boss, that doesn't fucking make sense. You understand? If you cannot do that, you're a yes man. You're a traitor to the rest of the country. If you only have loyalty for one person, especially if they're misguided. Now, ideally, you want the person who is in charge to understand all these things so they are not an insider threat themselves. But if they're an insider threat, it is your duty as a cabinet position to be able to speak truth to power. That's why you get appointed, to fill those blind spots that the executive might have, because they will have blind spots. That's how it works. There are many ways how authoritarian propagandists recruit insider threats. And in this season, we're going to be talking a lot about that, okay? So this is an introduction to insider threats again, okay? Like, wrap it up, okay? They come in witting and unwitting insider threat. A witting insider threat is that you know that you're doing something that is fucked up, that is sabotaging your team, and you're doing it anyway. That's treason. And an unwitting insider threat, somebody who's doing exactly the same fucking thing, but they're too dumb to realize that they're actually fucking up their own team. Which one are you? Are you an insider threat? And if you are an insider threat, what are you going to do about that? Because this is the good news, okay? An authoritarian is only as powerful as their followers. So if you're an insider threat, it's really up to you to do the right thing, or if you're going to be keeping your head in the sand. Just remember, again, that your loyalty means nothing to the person who's controlling you the very second you become inconvenient to them. And it's not a matter of if, but when they're going to dispose of you. This season is going to be a lot about this. Okay, it's going to be a little bit more technical as far as how we're actually going to be talking about it. I'm going to try to make it a little more conversational, so it's just a little more palatable for you guys. But if you haven't actually seen the first season, I recommend you to see that, okay, because it's going to start making a lot more sense and the level of complexity that we're going to be talking in the next following chapters. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Take care. Bye.